The Galactic Council's Grand Chamber had never been so silent, not in 3,000 cycles, not even when the Krasic swarms had threatened to consume the outer rim. Ambassador Zrell's 6 appendages trembled slightly as all 4 of his eyes darted nervously around the room, taking in the frozen expressions of horror on the faces of the assembled diplomats. "You did." "What?" High Counselor Nem finally broke the silence, her translucent skin pulsing an alarming shade of indigo. Zrell cleared his throat sacs. "I invited a human representative to mediate the peace talks between the Vorlox Federation and the Grindle Empire." The chamber erupted. Representatives from 17 sentient species all shouting, gesticulating with various appendages, some changing colors, others emitting warning pheromones that made the air thick and pungent. "Order. Order." Nem slammed her ceremonial staff against the floor, the quantum crystal tip sending harmonic vibrations throughout the chamber. "Ambassador Zrell, perhaps the radiation from your latest diplomatic mission has affected your cognitive functions. You've invited a human to participate in the most delicate peace negotiations in recent galactic history." The conflict between the Vorlox and the Grindle had been raging for decades. 2 technologically advanced civilizations with enough firepower to reduce several star systems to cosmic dust. The Vorlox, an empire of methodical, silicon-based life forms who measured their decisions in centuries, had finally reached their limit with the Grindle, a hive mind species of gaseous entities known for their unpredictable expansionism. "With all due respect, High Counselor," Zrell said, attempting to project confidence he absolutely did not feel. "Conventional diplomatic approaches have failed. 17 mediators from respected council worlds have tried. They were vaporized. 2 suffered permanent molecular destabilization. 1 is still technically alive but now exists as a probability cloud. And your solution is to bring in a representative from Earth. That insignificant, primitive, backwater planet barely 50 years into their galactic citizenship." Zrell straightened his posture, all 6 feet of his gelatinous form solidifying with resolve. "Precisely because they're new to galactic politics. They have no alliances, no centuries of prejudice, and they have unique problem-solving capabilities." "You mean they're unpredictable and dangerous," hissed Delegate Tox from the Reptilia Confederation. "The human arrives tomorrow," Zrell stated firmly. "The peace talks are scheduled for the following rotation. I've already informed both the Vorlox and Grindle representatives." "And how did they react?" Nem asked, leaning forward. "They agreed immediately." The silence returned, this time charged with confusion. "Both sides? Agreed? Without protest?" Nem's skin was now cycling through colors faster than a quantum computer performing calculations. "Yes," Zrell replied, "though the Vorlox ambassador did request formal confirmation that we would adhere to all safety protocols regarding containment of the human." "And the Grindle?" "They asked if 1 would be sufficient." Jack Sterling was having a perfectly normal Tuesday when the universe decided to flip his life upside down. 1 minute he was standing in line at Cosmic Coffee contemplating whether a triple-shot espresso would solve his deadline problem. The next he was being whisked away by 2 beings who looked like a cross between jellyfish and giraffes. "Let me get this straight," Jack said, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled dark hair as he paced the luxury quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmonious Discourse. "You want me, a freelance technical writer whose biggest achievement is making quantum computing sound sexy in marketing brochures, to help negotiate peace between 2 alien civilizations that have been trying to annihilate each other for longer than humans have had electricity?" Ambassador Zrell's translator device emitted a soft chime before converting his burbling speech. "Precisely, Mr. Sterling. Your credentials are not the point." "Then what is the point?" Jack asked, stopping to examine what appeared to be a floating orb of water that somehow didn't fall or splash. He poked it. It giggled. "Please don't stimulate the refreshment dispenser," Zrell's assistant, Pip, chirped. Pip resembled a 4-foot-tall hummingbird with too many eyes and not enough feathers. "It's sensitive." "Sorry," Jack muttered, wiping his wet finger on his jeans. "So, again, why me?" Zrell's body rippled in what Jack was learning to recognize as discomfort. "You were available." and you fit certain parameters we required, such as, you're human, Pip offered helpfully. That's it. That's the qualification, being human. Not just any human, Zrell corrected. One with no diplomatic training, no military background, and no common sense. Apparently, Jack interrupted, since I agreed to this insanity after about 5 minutes of consideration. 7 minutes, 23 seconds, Pip clarified, which is impressively decisive for a species with your limited neural processing capabilities. Jack stopped pacing and faced his alien hosts. Look, I appreciate the cosmic road trip and all, but I know nothing about these species. What are they like? What do they want? Why are they fighting? Zrell and Pip exchanged what could only be described as a significant glance, despite their completely incompatible ocular structures. The Vorlox, Zrell began diplomatically, are silicon-based entities who process information and make decisions on timescales that would seem ponderous to humans. They placed a mining colony on a planet containing rare elements. 300 years later, they began preparations for extraction. And let me guess, Jack interjected, the Grindle showed up in the meantime and called dibs. The Grindle, Pip continued, exist as a collective consciousness in gaseous form. They experience time as fleeting. They established 17 colonies and stripped 3 planets of resources while the Vorlox were still conducting environmental impact studies. So one side's too slow, the other's too hasty, and neither understands the concept of a calendar or making phone calls, Jack summarized. A vast oversimplification, Zrell burbled, but not entirely inaccurate. Jack flopped down on what he hoped was a couch. It hummed pleasantly and adjusted to support his spine. And how exactly am I supposed to help? Zrell's body turned a pale shade of mauve. We're approaching the situation creatively. You see, humans have a certain reputation in the galaxy. A reputation. We've only been part of your galactic community for like 50 years. What reputation could we possibly have? It's not so much what humans have done, Pip explained cheerfully, as what the galaxy believes humans might do. I don't understand. Let's just say, Zrell concluded, that your species' entertainment broadcasts reached us long before your actual ships did. Our movies? You're talking about our movies? Jack laughed. You're saying aliens are scared of us because of Hollywood? Neither alien confirmed nor denied this assessment, but Zrell's skin displayed patterns that Jack would later learn meant profound existential discomfort. We'll be arriving at the neutral space station in exactly 7 hours, Pip announced. I've prepared briefing materials on basic diplomatic protocols. Most importantly, try not to mention human historical conflicts, display excessive emotions, or make any sudden movements. So just don't be human, Jack quipped. Precisely. Pip responded, missing the sarcasm entirely. You're catching on quickly. The neutral space station hung in orbit around an uninhabited gas giant, a gleaming construct of impossibly thin metallic structures that somehow supported its massive weight, despite appearing as delicate as spun sugar. As their shuttle approached the docking bay, Jack pressed his face against the viewport like a kid at an aquarium. This is incredible, he breathed, fogging the transparent material. It looks like it should collapse under its own weight. Non-Euclidean architecture, Pip explained, checking something on a holographic display. The station exists partially in 11 dimensions, allowing for structural integrity impossible in merely 3-dimensional space. Cool, 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 Jack nodded, pretending to understand. So what's the plan when we land? Red carpet, formal introductions? I should warn you I didn't pack a tie. Zrell, who had been unusually quiet during the approach, finally spoke. Mr. Sterling, there are some protocols for your arrival. Please don't be alarmed. Before Jack could ask what that meant, the shuttle docked with a gentle thump. The doors hissed open to reveal a welcoming committee that consisted of what appeared to be a full hazardous materials response team. Figures in sealed suits with various numbers of limbs stood in formation, holding devices that were clearly scanning equipment. Zrell? Why does this look like the opening scene of E.T.? But in reverse, Standard procedure, Zrell assured him, voice pitched higher than usual. Please proceed through the containment corridor. They simply need to verify you're not carrying any destabilizing elements. Like what? Nuclear weapons? Pretty sure I'd remember packing those. Like excessive adrenaline, abnormal testosterone levels, or unregulated emotional states, Pip whispered. Jack stepped forward, arms slightly raised. So they're checking if I'm having a bad day. The scan took approximately 30 seconds, during which Jack stood perfectly still while various lights, beams and one curious tentacle probe examined him from all angles. Finally, a chime sounded, and the hazmat team visibly relaxed. Human presence confirmed, announced a metallic voice. Threat level, moderate to severe. Proceeding with containment protocols Alpha through Epsilon. Containment protocols. Jack hissed at Zrell as they were escorted through sterile corridors by the still cautious security team. And moderate to severe threat level? I write technical manuals for a living. A mere formality, Zrell assured him, though his body had taken on a distinctly mottled pattern. The important thing is that you've been cleared for the diplomatic summit. They were led into a vast chamber with a ceiling so high it disappeared into mist. At its center stood a circular table with representatives from various species already seated. Jack immediately noticed two delegations separated from the others, positioned at opposite sides of the table. On one side sat three crystalline beings that caught and refracted light in hypnotic patterns. They moved with glacial slowness, the air around them seeming to thicken with each minute gesture. The Vorlox, Jack presumed. On the opposite side hovered what appeared to be three swirling clouds of iridescent gas contained within faintly humming force fields. The vapor within pulsed and shifted constantly, never settling into a fixed pattern. The Grindle, clearly. All conversation ceased as Jack entered the room. He could feel dozens of alien eyes, sensory organs, and whatever the gaseous beings used for perception fixed on him. Is that a human? Came a whispered voice, translated through the universal communicators. They brought a human to peace talks, another voice gasped. That's not peace. That's a threat. I assure you, Zrell announced to the room, his voice steady despite his trembling appendages. Mr. Sterling is fully contained and here as a neutral mediator. One of the crystalline Vorlox beings slowly rose, the movement taking nearly 30 seconds to complete. We were assured, safety protocols, each word emerged with excruciating deliberation. Meanwhile, the Grindle representatives were swirling at increased speeds, their gas clouds changing colors rapidly. Fascinating, terrifying, exhilarating, concerning, came their collective voice, words tumbling over each other in rapid succession. Human presence changes calculations, possibilities expand, contract, danger, opportunity. Jack leaned toward Pip. Are they afraid of me? Like specifically me? Pip's feathers rustled. Not you specifically, your species generally. But why? We're not exactly galactic powerhouses. Perhaps this will help, Pip said, activating a small device that projected a series of images into Jack's field of vision. To his astonishment, they were scenes from human films and television, Ripley facing down the xenomorph queen, John McClane jumping off an exploding roof, Rambo taking on an entire army, and dozens more cinematic moments of humans displaying impossible resilience, resourcefulness, and capacity for violence. These entertainment broadcasts reached galactic civilization centuries before actual human contact, Pip explained. Most species assumed they were documentary footage. Jack stared, dumbfounded. You're telling me the entire galaxy thinks we're all action heroes? Heroes would imply moral clarity, Zrell interjected. The galaxy views humans as unpredictable elemental forces, like weaponized chaos. That's ridiculous. I got winded climbing the stairs to my apartment yesterday. Perhaps, Zrell replied, but none of them know that. The peace talks began exactly as well as one might expect when introducing a weaponized chaos element into delicate negotiations between fundamentally incompatible life forms. Which is to say, terribly. Jack sat at his designated spot at the circular table, uncomfortably aware that his chair was surrounded by subtle force field generators, and that everyone had given him a radius of space wide enough to park a small car. The Vorlox delegation took 17 minutes to deliver their opening statement, each word emerging with such ponderous gravity that Jack caught himself nodding off twice. And therefore we cannot accept these terms as proposed. The Grindle response came as a chaotic burst of rapid-fire communication. Unacceptable, typical rigid thinking opportunity costs mounting by nanosecond efficiency demands immediate resolution. After 3 hours of this, Jack understood why previous mediators had suffered molecular destabilization. He was considering asking if that option was still on the table when Zrell nudged him. "The High Mediator is requesting your input," Pip whispered. Jack blinked, suddenly aware that the entire assembly was staring at him expectantly. Sorry, could you repeat the question?" High Mediator Nem fixed all 3 of her primary eyes on him. "We asked for the human perspective on resource allocation disputes when temporal perception misalignment exists between competing claims." "Right. That." Jack cleared his throat. "Well, on Earth we usually just draw a line down the middle and tell both sides to stay on their own side or else." The room fell silent. The Vorlox crystals dimmed perceptibly. The Grindle clouds pulsated with alarming intensity. "Or else what?" asked a reptilian delegate, voice hushed. Jack shrugged. "I don't know. That's the point. The or else is left to the imagination." "The human employs psychological warfare tactics," someone whispered loudly. "Typical," another voice added. Jack raised his hands placatingly. "Look, I'm just suggesting that if you can't agree on who saw the planet first, maybe you could share it? Split the resources 50-50? Impossible." The Vorlox spokesperson vibrated with indignation, crystal facets flashing. "Our extraction methods require total planetary access. Inefficient, wasteful, prehistoric methodology." The Grindle collective countered instantly. "We extract 17 times faster with 80% yield." "Yeah, but your method leaves planets looking like somebody took a giant ice cream scoop to them," Jack pointed out, having reviewed the briefing materials during the shuttle ride. The Grindle clouds darkened. "Human criticizes our methods, threat implied, prepares countermeasures." Whoa. Jack stood up suddenly, causing half the delegates to flinch or activate personal shield generators. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just saying maybe there's a middle ground between taking 3 centuries to mine one mineral and strip mining a planet into oblivion in a week." The Vorlox representative slowly elevated several crystalline appendages. "Human suggests. Compromise is this trick?" "No trick." Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. "Just common sense." "A uniquely dangerous human concept," Nem interjected. "Their common sense has led to some of their most devastating historical outcomes." "Okay, what exactly do you all think humans are?" Jack asked, exasperation finally getting the better of him. "Because I'm getting the sense there's been a major misunderstanding." Pip reluctantly activated another holographic display. This one showed compiled statistics from human history, wars fought, nuclear weapons developed, environmental catastrophes navigated, pandemics survived, along with fiction categorized as historical documentation. Zombie apocalypses countered, alien invasions repelled, and global disasters averted through improbable heroics. "This is how the galactic community views your species," Zrell explained quietly. Jack stared at the display with growing disbelief. Half of this is made up. Those are movies, and the real historical stuff is taken completely out of context." "Is it true," one of the Grindle representatives pulsed forward to ask, "that humans willingly jump out of functional aircraft for recreational purposes?" "Well, yes, skydiving is a thing, but—" "And you intentionally consumed capsaicin, a chemical deterrent, for pleasure?" a Vorlox inquired with glacial curiosity. "Some people like spicy food, sure. And your species deliberately created fiction about its own extinction to entertain itself?" asked another delegate. "I mean, dystopian fiction is popular, but—" The chamber erupted into alarmed chatter. Jack looked helplessly at Zrell, who was rapidly changing colors in what appeared to be the gelatinous equivalent of a panic attack. "Enough." Jack shouted, slapping the table with his palm. The room went instantly silent. Several delegates activated emergency translocation beacons and disappeared. In the shocked silence that followed, Jack realized he had two choices. He could either try to convince everyone that humans weren't the terrifying chaos monkeys of the galaxy, or he could lean into it. He chose the latter. "Yes," he said, lowering his voice to what he hoped was an ominous register. "Humans are everything you've heard. We jump from planes. We eat pain for breakfast. We imagine our own destruction for fun on Friday nights." He began walking slowly around the table. "But do you know what else we do?" No one dared answer. "A compromise. We adapt. We find solutions when everyone else sees only problems." Jack stopped between the Vorlox and Grindle delegations. "And right now I'm seeing a pretty simple solution that you're all missing." "Explain," demanded Nem, who seemed to be the only one not completely intimidated. "The Vorlox need time. The Grindle need efficiency. You're fighting over who gets to mine a planet, but you're ignoring the obvious work together." The Vorlox crystals flickered in patterns too complex for Jack to interpret. The collaboration with gas, clouds, undignified. Impossible integration failure, incompatible methodologies. The Grindle swirled agitatedly. "Oh, I'm sorry," Jack said, crossing his arms. "I thought I was talking to advanced civilizations capable of interstellar travel, not kindergartners arguing over toys." He let that sink in, then continued. "The Vorlox have precision and care in their extraction. The Grindle have speed and efficiency. These gents combine those approaches, and you'll get the best of both worlds." "But the temporal incompatibility," one delegate began, "is an excuse." Jack interrupted. "Humans work with beings of different speeds all the time. We've got colleagues who take 2 hours to reply to an email and others who send 17 messages before you've finished reading the first one." Jack turned to the Vorlox. "Your careful approach ensures maximum yield and minimal environmental impact, but takes forever. That's your strength and weakness." Then to the Grindle, "Your speed gets results fast but leaves resources behind and planets damaged. Also a strength and weakness." He paused dramatically. "What if the Grindle handled initial extraction of easily accessible resources, following guidelines established by Vorlox environmental surveys? Then the Vorlox follow with their precision methods for the complex deposits. Both sides profit, extraction time is reduced by 70%, and the planet doesn't end up looking like Swiss cheese." The room remained silent, but it was a different quality of silence, contemplative rather than fearful. "This has merit," the Vorlox representative finally acknowledged. "Unexpected but logical efficiency gains substantial accepting possibility," the Grindle collective rippled. "Of course it has merit," Jack said confidently. "It's so obvious that only a species crazy enough to construct its dwellings directly on top of tectonic fault lines could see it." "Humans live on fault lines?" someone gasped. "And in tornado zones, floodplains, and at the bases of active volcanoes," Jack confirmed cheerfully. "We're not great at risk assessment." The negotiations suddenly took on a new energy. The Vorlox and Grindle delegations, now more afraid of disappointing the unpredictable human than they were of each other, began working through the details of a collaborative approach. Within hours, the framework for a partnership had been established. The Vorlox would handle planning and precision work, the Grindle would manage rapid extraction of easily accessible resources, and both would share in the profits according to a formula that Jack had essentially pulled out of thin air but presented with such confidence that no one questioned it. By the time the formal agreement was ready for signing, Jack had successfully negotiated peace by alternating between reasonable suggestions and casually mentioning human behaviors that horrified the galactic community. "Sometimes we just eat things we find without scanning them first." It had nearly caused a diplomatic incident. 3 days later, Jack stood in the observation lounge of the Harmonious Discourse, watching stars streak by as they headed back to Earth. Behind him, Zrell and Pip were reviewing the outcomes of what was already being called the Sterling Protocol throughout the galactic diplomatic community. The implementation teams report unprecedented cooperation. Pip chirped happily. The Vorlox Grindle Extraction Collaborative has already established preliminary operations on 3 contested worlds. And no molecular destabilization, Zrell added. Is gelatinous form now a pleasant shade of satisfied azure? High Councillor Nem has personally commended our unconventional approach. Jack turned from the viewport. So I'm not in trouble for threatening everyone with vague human unpredictability. Quite the opposite, Zrell burbled. The Council is considering establishing a permanent human diplomatic corps specifically for seemingly intractable conflicts. You're kidding. I assure you I am not engaging in humorous fabrication, Zrell replied. Your species' reputation, while terrifying, has proven surprisingly useful for motivating cooperation. Jack laughed. So the galaxy is afraid of humans because we eat spicy food and go skydiving? And because you invented nuclear weapons before developing reliable automobiles? Pip added helpfully. The development timeline of human technology is considered aberrant and deeply concerning. Also, Zrell continued, there is the matter of human physical resilience. Most species find it disturbing that you can lose significant portions of your body and still survive, or that you deliberately poison yourselves with ethanol for recreational purposes. When you put it that way, we do sound pretty weird, Jack admitted. The Council has a new understanding of humanity's potential role in galactic affairs, Zrell said. Less as a threat and more as a catalyzing agent. Like diplomatic hot sauce, Jack suggested. Just add humans when you need to spice things up. An apt metaphor, Zrell agreed, though perhaps not one I would include in my official report. As Earth came into view on the ship's displays, Jack reflected on the absurdity of it all. So let me get this straight. I helped broker peace between 2 advanced alien civilizations not because of any diplomatic skill, but because they're all terrified that humans are unpredictable lunatics. Your species does have a certain chaotic creativity that other civilizations find simultaneously terrifying and fascinating, Pip confirmed. It is why you were selected. And here I thought it was my charming personality. Oh no, Zrell said seriously. You were specifically chosen for being statistically average in all human metrics. Imagine the galactic panic if we had brought an exceptional specimen. Jack laughed so hard he had to sit down. 3 months later, the Galactic Council formally established the Human Diplomatic Initiative. Their official motto, suggested by Jack himself, humanity scaring the universe into peace since 2073. It was the first time in galactic history that a species' most terrifying trait, simply being human, had become its greatest diplomatic asset. Turned out, the threat of unpredictability was the universe's most effective peacekeeping tool, and humans. They had that in abundance.